Sorry, I lost you. Hang on. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hangout today. We are going to be focusing on how to launch Reader's Workshop in kindergarten. I have the pleasure of being an online facilitator for the NEA GPS network. GPS stands for Great Public Schools. And if you're looking for a place to connect and collaborate and have really wonderful conversations with other professionals who are also interested in making a difference in education, the GPS network is a great place for you to go. So you can go to gpsnetwork.com. .org. And with me today, as I said, I'm a facilitator for the NEA. I am also a kindergarten teacher in the state of Vermont. I work in Williston, and I'd like other people on the panel to go ahead and say hello and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Amy Kappele. I am a K2 reading specialist in St. Charles, Illinois. It's a western suburb of Chicago. I have been a preschool teacher, kindergarten teacher, first grade teacher, early intervention coordinator, and a reading specialist. And I'm also a GPS network facilitator, and my group is elementary reading literacy.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Molly Santkuyl. This will be my first year teaching kindergarten, and I am living in Wisconsin right now. So it will be interesting to talk about how I plan to launch Reader's Workshop, but I just recently had the chance to go to Columbia University and receive training in Reader's Workshop, so I'm excited to share that with you.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Bonnie McClelland. I'm a kindergarten teacher from Long Island, New York. I taught third grade, second grade for a number of years, and I'm beginning my third year in kindergarten. I've been on Twitter for about a year now, and that's how I met Sharon and many, many other people in education, and I've learned quite a lot just on Twitter alone as far as PD, and I'm excited to be a part and to share what I do in my classroom for Reading Workshop.
Awesome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa Lovejoy. I'm a kindergarten teacher in St. Albans, Vermont. Last year was my first year teaching kindergarten, so this will be my second year. And prior to teaching kindergarten, I taught at a private preschool. And I did Reader's Workshop last year and got some experience, some things I wanted to change. And so I'm ready to share with you what went well and things I'm going to do differently this time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So for our viewers today, we've compiled a lot of different questions about how we get started when we first think about organizing Reader's Workshop and creating an environment that supports and enhances literacy in kindergarten. So one of the questions, why don't we go ahead and jump right in, is how do people get started? So even before you get into your classroom, what are some things that you're thinking about that you want to make sure you have set up for your students when they arrive?
Well, what I do in my classroom, when children that are coming in kindergarten, we're not really sure what kind of background they have yet. In pre-K, who knows their alphabet, who knows their sounds. So setting up, I make sure that it's a print-rich environment, books, labeling I usually do with the class, but I make sure that as they come in, it's a print-rich environment that they're going to be immersed in. And we pretty much start from square one, and I assess the children as I go along and see who knows what, so I'm able to individualize their instruction.
Awesome. Melissa, what about you?
Before starting, I try to make sure I have a wide variety of books available in my classroom. So that, you know, when they're starting to just get books or when I'm introducing the library to them, everybody has a topic that they're interested in. I do know a little bit about what they're interested in at screening. The parents fill out a form. We also do home visits before the first day of school.
Oh,
so I get a chance to talk to them about what they're interested in so that I can try to make sure that if I don't have a particular topic or genre that they're interested in, I can get more at our school library. So that's my biggest part before the kids get there. And then in the very, very beginning, when they do get there, we start talking about expectations of the Reader's Workshop time and what it's going to look like.
That's awesome. And Molly, what about you? What are some things that you're thinking about?
Well, for me, getting into my first classroom, I just wanted to make sure that the students had a place for them to go and to read. So right when you walk into my classroom, I have 3 bookshelves arranged in a way that it's like a small library. But then I also have 2 other bookshelves full of books. And I labeled some of them according to level, and others are a different bookshelf are labeled according to topic, so that the students are able to look through the books based on their needs at that time. When they first come in, obviously they're not going to know what level they're reading at, so they might want to choose a book off of the shelf that's labeled based on topic.
Oh, that's great. And Amy, what are some things that you notice, or from your experience, or even in the classrooms that you visit?
Well, part of my job, which I've been working on this week, being I'm kind of responsible for the whole school, so creating that reading zone, really creating that environment from the minute they walk in the door, so parents know literacy in our K-2 building is a big focus. So making sure, you know, that we have opportunities to have things on the walls in glass cabinets that really promote reading of books, the kids' feelings about books, and also that is created at home. So I've been working on literacy backpacks for the last week, and we do content-related literacy backpacks for each grade level. So they have books in them, they have journals in them, sometimes they have concept activities in them. So not only do I try to create that reading zone, that literacy zone at school, but it's also my job to try to connect what's going on at school to at home, because we can't assume that parents know what kind of things should they be doing and do they have those materials at home. So that's kind of from the reading specialist aspect. Before they come, that's what I'm thinking about.
Wow, that's really awesome. I love also, Bonnie, your point about making sure that you have your environment is print rich. That's really, really important, and that you do a lot of labeling with the students as well when they come in. That's something that I think an awful lot about as well. And I really appreciate the ideas being shared, especially Amy, from you about that homeschool connection. And it sounds like your school is really doing some great things to help parents be successful with their kids when they are coming home with books. I know in my classroom we send home just right books, but we don't really get into the guided reading groups until January. So before January, we do a lot of more author studies or, you know, familiar read-alouds that we read over and over again, and we focus on story and story retelling and that kind of thing as well. But I really like that idea of having something kind of ready, like a little pack ready to go home. Can I ask, how did you get funding for that? Is that something that the school just did, or did you get a grant?
This has been, I have gotten grants probably the last 3 years. Initially I started it in just kindergarten, and then my building used to be a K-5 and it split to be a K-2, 3-5. So then we decided, as long as we were just a K-2 and we were a literacy-focused building, that everybody needed literacy backpacks, just scaffolded for their standards and their content. So I wrote the grant 3 years in a row, and it's actually from our local St. Charles Greater Education Foundation. And you write the grant and your proposal, and it's anonymous. They don't know who's writing it. You just explain to them what what you want and how you're going to measure results and why you need it, what's the research, and then luckily I've gotten it 3 years in a row.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know another place that I have used a lot, especially if you guys are interested in our viewers also, where you can go and write grants for books that I have done in the past, is donorschoose.org. It's really a great organization. You do have to do a little bit of writing, but once you submit your project, they're really committed to getting it funded. And I know I've done that a lot in the past years for books that I focused on in a certain genre or author studies. So that's another great resource for people also. I've also heard a lot already this afternoon about the different things that we all do in terms of laying the foundation for reading, making sure we have these really rich environments we have that are also welcoming and conducive, that kids are comfortable in. Molly, thank you for that. And also, I appreciated, Melissa, what you had to say about making sure that we also have a variety of text. I think that's also really important, that there's a variety and a mixture of fiction and nonfiction, because those books also in the beginning, I think when we're exploring different features of books, sometimes there's some overlap as well. So that's really awesome. One of the other things I was thinking if we could try to talk a little bit about is, how do you find out what types of books that your students like, either before they come to kindergarten or when they get to your classroom? Would anyone like to start with that?
I could start. What I did, well, the setup in my classroom, I have about 4 or 5 tables that the kids sit at, and I set up high interest baskets, what we call them, and I fill them with ABC books, nonfiction books with really engaging photos of animals, books that the kids may be interested, or books that the kids have seen before, stories that they know before, so they could just pull them out, and right at the beginning during reading workshop, right at the really early stages, they'll take the books out at their table, they'll choose, they'll flip through, maybe they'll share a book with a partner and just talk about it. And then at the end of the workshop, in those first few weeks, I let them take home one of those books from the basket. Say, which one did you enjoy the most? Which one did you like? Which one do you want to show mom and dad at home? So they can go home with something. And then the next day they bring it back and they could switch it with another book. So those high interest baskets are filled with not necessarily books that they could read on their own, but books that they will enjoy flipping through the pages and pointing at pictures and just talking about them.
Wow, that's awesome. Melissa, what about you?
I get a lot of my information from the home visits that I go on. I don't know if any of you go on home visits.
No.
But one thing I do is I have the kids show me one of their favorite things at home, and that can give me information about what books I might like. It might be a dinosaur that they really like, or some kind of object that could be a topic of a book. I may ask them to show me, bring out their favorite story from home, and that gives me information. And then also the parents, we have an input form, and they list all of their child's interests, and that helps me choose books for my library as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Molly, what are your ideas? What is something you're thinking about doing to find out what your students enjoy reading?
Well, my school does one-on-one visits where they come to school for a 20-minute time block before the school year starts. So actually a week from today I'll be doing the first of those. And during that time the students are able to go through the books that I have in my classroom, and they're actually starting to create their own book bins at that time. They choose, I think, 2 or 3 books and put them into their bins so that when we start readers right on that first day, they already have a book bin.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Another thing that we do is we use responsive classrooms, so we do a lot of guided discovery. And so on the very first day, our Readers Workshop really is a mesh of that guided discovery and workshop. So we're talking about book bins and how these are going to help us. So at that time, they're looking through and they're kind of answering questions about how are we going to use these and how will these help us learn. So hopefully at that time, it'll be digging a little bit deeper into what they want to put in those bins.
Wow. That's a great idea. In Williston, where I work, before kindergarten starts, we have 2 days where we invite parents to come in with their child for an hour, and we do all of our assessing before school starts, and then we schedule an hour time usually, and then we sit and have a conversation with them about, reading, about math, about, anything in general, the questions that they may have about kindergarten. But I really like the idea of maybe finding specifically things that they're interested in, so when they do come, they have some books ready to go. I like that. I haven't tried that. I may try that. Amy, what about you?
I don't have my own classroom, which we talked about, but a lot of it when I'm working with teachers is being that observer, when you're reading aloud to your kids, who's engaged in the fiction, the nonfiction, the mystery, whatnot, and also just being an observer when they go to the your library in your school or your classroom library. What are they picking? So really trying to take time to not always be busy when they're doing stuff, but make sure you're observing and noting what would they pick that I might not have picked for them. So making sure that that informal observation is always a piece of your getting to know them.
Awesome. So we just got a question from the audience from Adam in Vermont. And I'll just read the question, and whoever would like to jump right in and respond, that would be great. It says, he's asking, do children have a chance to add to the print-rich environment with their own authored books? And the other piece of the question is with both invented and conventional print. So would anyone like to?
Can I start?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, yes, absolutely. We do shared writing pieces, either a letter maybe, or at the beginning a story talking about our school. I may start with a topic, our school, and we will write our school, our principal is, my name is, and we may make a little book about it following a pattern, and that can be added to the classroom or even to individual book baggies. And the labeling we do shared together also. We may say, or I may say, find something in the room that you'd like to label. A child may say the computer, and then we'll start with the first letter. Do you know what's the k sound? And then I'll help them spell the rest. Inventive spelling, that's all part of writing workshop, and that comes along in stages as well.
Awesome. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, we also start the year making a lot of class books where there'll be a page from each student, and we make those throughout the year. We do it with poetry as well, and all of those class books are added to their own basket in our library called class books, and it really helps at the beginning of the year. One, because usually their pictures are in the book, so they like to look at themselves in the book and their friends. And also, like Bonnie said, there's a lot of repetition and pattern, which makes it easy for them to engage with the text.
Yeah, I think that's great. I know you guys probably know the story, Brown Bear, what do you see? Oh, love that story.
That's one of my first that we use.
Yeah, isn't it? And it's so great because you can apply that to anything. So we've done it with, you know, Brown Bear, who do you see? I see Melissa looking at me. Melissa, who do you see? You know, that kind of thing, and using the photographs of the students, but again, with that repetitive language, which is really nice, and then they feel like they're already really successful at reading,
right.
which is really awesome. It's very exciting.
And
so I've done things like that.
When it's their idea, a specific page is their idea, they love reading it, and they will always get it correct because it was their idea.
Yeah. And then even I know, that's another book that we can just kind of slide into their book bin, something that they feel, successful with as well, which is really great. Yeah, it's really great.
Right.
I didn't know if anyone else had any other comments about using Adam's other part of his question about using invented and conventional print in your classroom. I know as I sit here looking around in my own room right now, I do have a lot of traditional print things that I have labeled ahead of time, but I also like to leave a lot of things for the students to label as well, because I think that does help with their ownership and also helping them kind of experience what it's like to be a reader and a writer independently, and that they are making a contribution to the learning community. So I would be interested to hear what other people do around that also.
I know that in my classroom, because of responsive classroom, which I've already talked about, that is one of our social studies lessons, is going around and labeling the room. And they said it just really gives the students ownership of what those things are. And Bonnie was saying before about labeling and in having the students work through the sounds, and it made me think of when I was in New York, they had mentioned that it's really powerful to use "this is a clock" instead of just labeling "clock," to use like a shorter sentence, because then they're getting those sight words and it's just a little bit more meaningful for them. So maybe not right away at the beginning of the year, but eventually adding on to "clock" to say "this is a clock," so then they have those sight words all over the place as well.
That's a great idea.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that too. That's an awesome idea. So another question that we had was thinking about when we're reading aloud in kindergarten, which we all know reading aloud is really, really an important thing to do, really, really important, and to do it daily many times throughout the day. And I know in the beginning of kindergarten, I always have a lot of parents who say, what is one of the most important things I should be doing in the evening? And I always say, read to your child. Just read to your child. You can never read too many books to them. So one of the things I'm wondering is if people would be comfortable sharing a little bit about how often do you read aloud in your classrooms, and how many times would you read like a book? Do you do familiar stories for a certain amount of time, or do you read some stories over and over again throughout the year? Would anyone like to start?
Okay, I can start. I would say at the beginning I read aloud maybe 3 or even 4 times a day. I would say in the morning during maybe a morning meeting, something short, even if it's a poem. Then after snack, usually after snack time, a calm down, let's get together, read a book. After lunch, even, and then maybe at the end of the day. So we could go upward to maybe 4 times a day. We do something called Star Book, which is an emergent story that we do read maybe 2-3 times a day over a full week. And some of those stories could be Caps for Sale, Corduroy is a star book, 3 Billy Goats Gruff. Their emergent story books are books that are rich in story language, a once upon a time type of book. And as you read, maybe there's a choral part where the kids could answer back, especially in 3 Billy Goats Gruff. They like to do the troll voice. And after reading it so many times, by the end of the week, I have mini books, copies that I could put into the baskets or into their own individual baggies. And they, quote unquote, can read the story themselves by using the picture, flipping the pages, and you could hear the voices, how they're interacting. So I think that's the beginning stages of really reading. We're getting them to reading the left to right. I use the big book as lessons. See the cover, which way do we hold it, who can point to the words, where are the words, do they go left to right? So so many different lessons are tied into the read alouds, and especially those emergent storybooks at the beginning.
That sounds awesome. I like that how you label it like a star book.
That's what we call it, and we have yellow stars on them to distinguish from the other books in the library.
Oh, that's great. It's a great idea. Molly or Melissa or Amy?
I also read aloud about 3 times a day, could be more or less depending, especially at the beginning of the year. I use literature to teach a lot of social studies, or we're talking about citizenship and being respectful to others, and I use a lot of literature to work with the students on that. So a lot of my read alouds focus around that at the beginning of the year. Also, as the year goes on, some of our read-alouds could be longer in one sitting, depending on how much they're turning and talking to each other, how much we're talking at the end of the story. But I think it's really good for the students to be hearing fluent reading, to be hearing my thinking as I'm going through the story, and for also to model how writers write. So it ties into Writer's Workshop using mentor texts. So I'll do read-alouds a lot to model how the author is writing during Writer's Workshop as well.
That's awesome.
I don't get a chance to do a lot of read alouds, seeing as I am mostly working with the struggling students, but we do some. But what I really like about when I work with the teachers is we have a teacher author in Aurora, Illinois named Maria Walther. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with her. She is an amazing author. She presents all over the United States. If you haven't heard of her, she's a first grade teacher. And she does what is called a read aloud tally in her classroom. And she reads about 4 to 5 books a day. All of those books might not be the entire book. It might be revisiting a book for a certain page or paragraph or whatever. But every time they do, they tally it as a class. And then by the end of the year, they are up to 900, 1,000 books.
Wow.
They have read, and the kids are it's just amazing. But and she can always go back and tie what she does in the content areas and SEL and all that back to those read aloud books. But it just shows you, that the importance of it, shows parents the importance of it, and it just reminds you. It's like, wow, remember, look at all these books we read. And I just thought when I share with my teachers, that's one way to remind yourself. If you haven't added to that read aloud tally, that cannot be the first thing to go, because you can get so much bang for your buck out of that. So that's a good way to keep you accountable, and then show the kids the power of, and the parents that read aloud.
That's a great idea. I love that idea. What is Ria's last name?
name is Walther, Walther. Actually, I can show you one of her books if you show me how to. I'm not quite sure. Where do I put it? Just in front of me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right in front of you. There you go. You have to cover your face so we can see them there. Oh, okay. Great.
Good?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's amazing, though. But it'll have, in that one, it has the example that I just talked about with the Read Aloud Sally.
Okay, awesome. All right. Molly, do you have anything that you want to add?
I think everybody did a really great job talking about how, read alouds in the beginning especially are just a way to show, like, this is how you follow the book, and this is where we start, reading left to right. But one thing that I think is super important is just showing your love for books. And I think a read aloud is a great way to do that. I fell in love with reading because my parents read to me every night, and I loved the crazy voices that my dad used. And so if I'm able to give that to my students, that is really important to me, and I do that through read alouds.
Oh, that's awesome. So another question that I had listed for us to kind of explore a little bit was we've talked a little bit about it, but how are people arranging the books in your classroom? Like I heard Molly talk about how she has kind of like a nice little welcome area that kind of looks like a library. Do people just have books in one spot in your classroom, or do you have them kind of, filtered throughout the room? Would anyone like to share how they do that?
Okay, I have mine, like you said, Sharon, I have them filtered throughout. I have a couple of both bookshelves. I'm not sure what they're called, the triangular ones where you could set the books in front so you could see the covers.
Yeah, like a display, a book display.
Like a display. I have a couple of those, and after we do a specific read aloud, whether it's holiday oriented or tying into a subject matter, I like to put those in the front facing out. So the kids like to pull them if we have free time. They know that it's something that we read aloud. They get excited and they like to take it. I have about two of those shelves. And then I also have shorter bookshelves where we have baskets that are leveled. So when it's time to do the guided reading, they know which basket to go to shop for their books. And I also have a basket, I call it the friend books, where they're just fun books about superheroes, maybe cartoon characters from TV, just things that they would really enjoy to pull from and flip through when they have free time.
Awesome. And Melissa?
I have, most of my books are housed in the library area of my classroom, which is about 3 to 4 different bookshelves that I have, and the books are in different baskets. The books are sorted by, some are genre, by topic, and also by level, and then I have some by author. And so they have a picture, an image, and a text label on them, and they're all assigned a number. So then each book has a corresponding number on it. So once they're done with a book in their book box, they know exactly where to put it based on the number that's on the book, and that's really helpful in keeping the library organized for other people to go in and find books.
Do you use numbers instead of letters as far as leveling? Is that what you mean? Because I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, so for, like, even if it's a book about weather, like if I have a basket of books about weather, all of those books might be number 3. And so
I see. Okay.
There's a 3 on the basket, and then all the books also have 3s on them.
I see.
Label. So when they're done with it, they just put it back with number 3.
Okay.
And then I have separate bins for books that are leveled as well.
Oh, okay. That's great. I've done a lot of different things. I have a lot of bins set up according to author. I do that. There are certain authors that we read a lot of every year, so I've done that. I also do the leveled books with the letter, and then also topics as well. I think that's really helpful. But I'm thinking about, I think I need to think about doing it a little bit differently, especially with topics. Like someone mentioned having a little sticker of the topic or something on the book to match maybe whatever that topic is, something more visual, I think, to help kids, because the way I think I have it with just the text, it's still hard to decipher, like what topic goes and what bit. Do you know what I mean? But I'm just trying to think of a different way, maybe visually, to use stickers that might just represent that topic. Whoever mentioned that was a great idea.
Does anyone else keep baskets hidden, for lack of a better term, in the back closet for when you want to present them to the class? I have a little back closet with science books and social studies books, and I won't necessarily take them all out at once because they would rummage through them. Maybe I'll have my winter books that I'll take out during the winter, and Halloween, which is always a favorite, I'll take those out when it's Halloween, and then when it's over, I'll put them back and replace it with the next basket.
I've done that too with some books, especially news stories that I'm getting ready to introduce. I may not put those right out on the shelf right away, but for the most part, I have the books are mostly kind of laid out. I don't know. What about you, Molly?
I have, as of right now, all of my books out on all of the shelves. I'm sure that there will be some that I'll pull that I know I'm going to be using in the first couple weeks, and my plan is to introduce those as like a brand new book, something really exciting. And then I bought some of those like metal holders that you put a picture frame in.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to set those on top of my shelves. So those are the books that I'm going to be using repeatedly for read alouds, and so they'll always be on display in the classroom too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We had another question come up. It was actually one that I had written down for us also to talk about. People are wondering about the ways or the opportunities that we create or have set up in our classroom for students to actually engage in text. So is there just one reader's workshop a day? We've talked a little bit about we do frequent read aloud. So how many different opportunities during the day do your students have opportunities to interact with text, and during what kinds of activities?
I would say throughout the entire day. From the minute they walk in, they're reading something till it's time to go home, starting with the morning message, a poem, have kids coming up, noting sight words, then we do a read aloud, if we have a science unit or social studies unit, even in math. I know there's a lot of reading and pointing to pictures in math. So I would say throughout the day, really, there's always an opportunity to practice and immerse into some sort of reading.
Awesome. Melissa, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Bonnie. I think it's happening all throughout the day. Morning message in the morning. During math, one of my math stations is always math books, so counting, measurement, shape books. So they're always getting opportunities to see math in text as well during math time. A lot of songs and poems that we do for shared readings are up on charts in the classroom. During word study time, they have the opportunity to write the room or go around the room and notice print everywhere in the classroom. So there are several opportunities aside from the reader's workshop and read alouds for them to engage with text.
Awesome.
You want me to
go ahead, Amy?
As I work with teachers when I get the opportunity during all of our professional learning, and exactly what these guys are saying, all those opportunities going from whole group, small group, and individual. So making sure that all of those times throughout your day, involve some kind of text. And that's exactly what these guys are saying. And then also taking it back and forth. Everything you read about, you're writing about, and vice versa. With the mentor text and then the writing around the room and things like that. So it's that reading and writing connection that lets that happen all day long in those different times of the day, and then weaving the content in and out through that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that is a really important piece and something really important to think about too when working in kindergarten, is that you want to have your students, you want to give them opportunities throughout the day to interact with text and story and have conversations about what they're reading about, what they're seeing, what they're writing about. It's not something that we just sit with a group of kids and do in, one 20-minute session. That's kind of the beauty of kindergarten, I think. We're on our feet all day long, and we have to come up with creative ways to kind of weave that story, weave that language throughout the day. Because I think you're right. I think through those multiple opportunities and repetitions and practice, children do learn to take on that vocabulary and use it appropriately, as well as really enjoy and begin to understand what reading is about. So that's really great. Molly, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
So one other place that I can think of that I know I will be using language and reading and writing is in my energizers. There are tons of books full of energizers, and some of my favorites are just a story that I would be reading aloud. And for instance, every time I came to the word this, the students that had a card that said this would have to stand up. Or this, whenever I would say when I got to an in the story, the students holding the card would stand up. So just small energizers, things like that throughout the day. I think we're all doing it without even realizing how often we really are using reading and writing.
Mm. So could you share a little bit more about the energizers? I like that idea. Can it be with any story or?
Well, I think you really could do it with any story, especially if you're trying to focus on a certain sight word or whatever it may be. But one of the books that I have been looking through is called 99 Energizers, and they're just supposed to be quick things throughout the day where your students are getting restless and you just need to get them up and moving. And some of them are games, some are stories, but even that listening component of reading and writing, I think, really comes out in those energizers too. So I don't know the author. All I know is that it's called 99 Energizers.
Is that like a brain break?
Yes.
Okay. My class loved it. Can we do a brain break? We just had one.
I know there is. Hey, I don't know if you guys know about this, is a little bit off topic, but Go Noodle.
I heard a lot, and I'm looking forward to using it this year because I'm getting a smart board this year. I didn't have one last year. Yeah. But I'm very excited. I heard great things. Have you used it, Sharon?
I have this last year, and it's really great. They have the thing that I like about it is they have lots of different songs and activities. So if you're trying to get your students to kind of have a calming breath and get ready to focus, and they have those. And then they have the energizers where they just need to get up and wiggle around a little bit. I mean, there's a variety of songs, and they're really great. The kids just love them.
They love them.
Yeah, great for inside recess. Great. So anyway, the next piece that we have that we wanted to share with our viewers today also is to talk. We've talked a little bit, actually quite a bit, about how important it is to develop a culture that supports early literacy inside our classrooms as well as outside our classrooms. And we touched upon a little bit about the physical surroundings, things that we might use, as well as different literature being explicit and modeling, using mentor texts, and also being really good communicators with parents before and after school as well. I'm wondering how are people, if they could share a little bit about how are you using your school library in regards to literature and reading in your classroom, and also maybe extending that a little bit, how are you also, if you are involving the community librarian at all, or library in your towns, if someone would like to share a little bit about that.
Okay, I know I work very well with the librarian in our school. She's very welcoming with inviting classes in of all grade levels and working with them on specific projects. She'll come to me and say, what topic are you working on? Can I have some books ready for your class? Can I do a little introduction? We actually have a class set of Chromebooks in the library where the kids can go and look at Pebble Go. I don't know if anyone has used Pebble Go. It's a little research website, and my class has researched animals on that. There's little things to click, and it reads to you, or you can read it yourself. We also visit the library once a week, where the kids can take books out and bring them back, and that's always exciting because I let them pretty much take a high interest book, a book that just interests them, that gets them excited, that they could bring home, have mom or dad read it to them. A lot of the boys take out the superhero books, and it's a fun time for them. The library, I think, should be exciting. They should want to go there, and they do. I think the kindergarten kids especially, they love going to the library. So that's why I haven't really used our neighborhood librarian so much, but I think that's great. I know in the past we used to do field trips to the library, and they used to do a little program for the kids. I'd like to explore that more because I know that's always exciting.
Mm-hmm. Melissa, what about you?
My students also go to the library once a week as one of their specials, and there the librarian does a read aloud, and they have a discussion for the first part, and then the second part they get to look around the library and choose a book to take with them. I also personally utilize the library a lot just because my classroom library isn't huge since I just started last year, and I'm allowed to take out as many books as I want at the library. So in whatever genre or topic I'm really lacking in, it's nice to be able to go there and get some more for the students. Or if it's a special time of year, if we're focusing on a certain science topic, it's nice to be able to go there. I know when the librarians are ordering, they always check with us about, anything that we really need, any areas that we're lacking in that they could order some books for us to have. And I would also like to do more with the community library. I haven't done too much. I know they do summer programs for the kids, but I would like to look into utilizing them more throughout the year.
Okay.
We do some things with our community library, and again, each teacher is a little bit different. They will, if you call them and say, I'm, working on bugs or, habitats or whatever, they will collect age-appropriate read-alouds for you. I think it's maybe up to 20, and then they will have them all ready for you to come pick up, and you can have them in your class for a month. They also have certain units or like certain topics where they already have like a layout of a lesson plan for a while for you that they will actually come and do with your students, which is kind of neat. And then they're involved in we do a summer Books on the Go program. We go to about our 4 lowest socioeconomic apartment areas, and we bring books to them, and we leave them for a week, and then we bring them back. And then our library decided they wanted to be involved, so they started coming and doing more activities right on the spot with the kids and the families. So they're really trying to partner with the schools more to try and make that connection, engage the families to then come to the library.
That's awesome. Molly, what about you?
I haven't really had a chance yet to do too much with my current library, but when I was student teaching, I was in a school that had a huge library, and it was awesome to just be able to go in there with the students and let them choose whatever they need. But I really did use it more, like Melissa had said, for the units where I didn't necessarily have enough in my classroom, so I would just go and grab piles of books from in there, and I can bring them into my classroom. And the librarian has always been really helpful in saying, oh, you should check out this book, or if you're looking for even a certain student, if you find out where that interest lies. I've found that everywhere I've been so far, the librarians are really happy to help, and they know a lot more about the books than I do at this point, and they know about series that I don't know about. So it's been really helpful just to chat with them about what can I give a student who likes this but doesn't like this, for instance. So I really like working with the librarians in the schools that I've been in so far.
Yeah, they're really great. They have endless resources. I know at our school, we also, very similar to you guys, we also visit the library once a week, and we have a great librarian. She reads a story, and she gives the kids a little plastic bag with canvas handles so that they can keep for the whole year to take care of their library book, you know, to and from school, which is really nice. And then the other thing that we started maybe about 5-6 years ago, is we invite the school librarian to come in to the kindergarten classrooms. All the kindergarten teachers do that, and also the first and second grade teachers. And the town librarian will come in, and she'll do it a couple of times a year. She'll read a story to the children, and she'll talk to them about the public library. And then she leaves applications with me that I send home. So the parents fill them out, and I mail them to her, and then she comes back in again, and she will give each child their own personal library card.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really a big deal. So that's one thing that we've tried here, just trying to make more of that community home connection with literacy, and how to get more parents involved and really wanting to visit the library. Because in our community, too, we do have people that don't have cars. They depend on the bus system. And I liked, Amy, listening to what you guys do with your group in terms of actually going to an area and just kind of setting up shop and being there. I think that is really an awesome idea, because then that way you're there, you're available, and again, promoting that love of literacy. That's really great.
We found the first summer that we opened our library at school, we have a little bit of the transportation problem, and the families just weren't coming out like we hoped, even though we opened our library once a week. So we decided to write a grant for this Books on the Go, and go to the 4 different apartment complexes, and they all gave us like a room in their clubhouse. So we go for an hour, and we set up, and we just have a very simple checkout system. I mean, the kids write their name on the card, and we write down that they have 2 books today, and then they keep them for the week. But, oh, what a difference it's made. We go to 4 different locations, and you're making it convenient for them. You're saying it matters, books matter, you matter, and every year it's grown. So it's really amazing. I have a bilingual school, so 1 section out of each of my 6 is taught in their first native language, which is Spanish. So we have books for both English and Spanish speakers, and they're allowed to take either. And we actually try to have books for babies through 6th grade, because we allow siblings to come as well, because we want them all to have books. So it's really been a great opportunity. It's actually my other reading specialist in my building that heads that up, since I do the backpack program. But it's just been wonderful. We've had great success.
Oh, it sounds awesome. It sounds absolutely awesome. I was also wondering if people could share a little bit about some of the authors that might be really good authors for people to think about using and exploring in their classrooms in kindergarten. Would anyone like to share some authors that or some great books that you begin the year with?
Oh, of course, Eric Carle is always a favorite with the Brown Bear. I like starting not only Brown Bear, but The Very Hungry Caterpillar. And I liked reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar again at the end of the year. And I tell the children at the beginning, you came in like this little caterpillar, and here you are at the end of kindergarten, a butterfly. And they make their folders that they go home with at the end of the year, with the caterpillar on the front and the butterfly on the back. So that's a good start to the year, and then I tie it up with that at the end. Another one of my favorites, who's actually, I'm not sure how new he is, Eric Litwin, who does the Pete the Cat series. Pete the Cat is so much fun, because he has about 4 or 5 now, Pete the Cats, and it's nice to start the year because there's Pete the Cat rocking in my school shoes, and it has a song that goes along with it. And this year I sent home a little sneaker, printable sneaker that the kids are going to decorate, and they have no idea why. So just decorate your school shoe, and then bring it in on the first day, and we're going to talk about how each of them are unique, and I'm going to read Pete the Cat rocking in my school shoes after that. And there's a song that the kids could sing along. I'm sure it's on his website, or you could YouTube it. And even March, April, so many months after we read it, they were still asking for the Pete the Cat song. And I dressed like Pete the Cat for Halloween last year for the kids. They loved it. So he's a favorite, only because I think he's kind of a hero to the kids, because he's sassy. He wears sunglasses. He wears high-top sneakers. And he's somebody that they could relate to, and they really like him. So he's a fun author. He actually just came out with another book. Just came out in July. I requested it at the library. It's called Bedtime at the Nut House. and it's about nuts. If you look on YouTube, oh my goodness, it is so funny, and it'll get stuck in your head. The kids are nuts. They're actual nuts. Is Hazelnut, and her name is Hazel, and Wally is the walnut, and there's the mama nut, and she tells all little nuts need to go to bed. And as a teacher, it's funny for us because we get the joke that the nuts need to go to bed, and the kids just think, they're little nuts, and driving them crazy. But I'm getting off topic here. But Eric Litlin is the author, and he makes really, really cute books, cute read-alouds to the kids.
Oh, great. Thanks. Anyone else want to share?
I also start with Eric Carle for an author study. But another one that I did last year was I started with the book Elmer by David McKee.
Oh.
And there are several other Elmer books in the series, and I actually have a little Elmer stuffed animal. And that was like our class pet in the classroom, and Elmer always lived in the library along with his books. And I spaced them out throughout the year when I read the different books, and they always got so excited to see a book about Elmer. And the books teach a lot of social lessons, which is really nice. And the first one is all about being different and that it's okay to be different. And that's kind of how I start out the year. And it's just really nice to have that reminder throughout the year in the library that it's okay to be different. So I really like that one.
Okay, great.
One of my favorite books. Go ahead, Molly.
Sorry.
We're good.
I love using Mo Willem books. I think they are hilarious, and the kids, I think, can really relate to the emotion that comes through in those books.
The Elephant and Piggy.
Yes, and then they have such great, they're simple pictures, but they're so great, so that when the students do get to a point where they're reading but not really reading the books, they're able to come up with that storyline because they're simple, but they're fun, so they remember. So I love those books.
So great. Amy?
The book that I try to start with the kids that I end up seeing right away, because a lot of times some of them are not your most engaged readers or your most excited readers. So there's a book called The Best Place to Read. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's by Debbie Bertram and Susan Bloom, and it's just about this little boy who goes to every possible place in his home, outside his home, trying to find that place for him. And it's just showing everyone that there's not only one place to read, but you can find that perfect place for you. So then
What is that called, Amy? I'm sorry.
The Best Place to Read.
Okay, thank you.
And it's by Debbie Bertram and Susan Bloom. And then we just make a little anchor chart to keep up in our room, and then I just ask them, well, where can you read? And then, I can read in my bedroom, I can read in the cart at the grocery store, I can read in the car, I can read in line waiting for my mom to do this, whatever. So we just list, and we have all different colors, and we keep this in the anchor chart up all year. Then so we know, well, you go home and there's a best place to read for everyone, and everyone's is different. So it's kind of fun. They like that. But it's a really cute book to start with at the beginning of the year.
That's awesome. A couple of books that I like are, and I'm sure you guys know these, are Chicka Chicka Boom Boom and Chicka Chicka 1 2 3. They're just, and I did end up getting, they're on YouTube also, but the kids love the music. They love the repetition in terms of just the language, and it's so great. It's one of they're both books that they can put in their book bin as a familiar story, or a book that they feel they can read independently. I love listening to them sitting with a partner and just going through and just, and it's amazing also when they reread these stories in their own way, of course. You can hear the inflections in their voice that you also have when you're reading the stories, as well as when we've watched it on YouTube. And it's just so funny. It's so comical. But again, it's all of these things that are, part of learning how to read. Using a different voice and tone and expression. And so both of those books are really great for introducing that as well. They really, really love those books. Has anyone used the kissing hand that would like to share really quickly? Anything they've done with that?
I've used that in the past. We've sent home a letter to the parents, to the moms, with a cutout of a hand telling them to kiss it and then send it in on the first day of school. and I read the book and then have the kids take out the hands. But I found a lot of them now, they're reading it in pre-K, so it's not so much a surprise. When they come in kindergarten, they feel, oh, I read that book, and it's a disappointment to me because I wanted it to be a surprise. But it's still a nice story. They still love it.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't read that a lot. I didn't read it last year. I can't believe it. But in past years, I have. Probably for that same reason, too, because it is something that our preschools have been reading more. So I'm trying to, be respectful too. And sometimes I think it's okay, though, to read the same book again year after year, because as kids get older, they get different things from the story and the text as well. Another story that I've read that's really great is Yo Yes by Chris Rushka. And it's just a great little story about friendship. It's just two boys who are beginning to say hello to each other, and they're not really talking a lot, and they use a lot of facial expressions, body expressions, and then just very simple words, like no, yes, and then eventually they become friends. But there's a lot of non-spoken communication and how they, get connected. So I like that story just because it offers a different perspective, that sometimes you can get to know someone. You don't always have to use a lot of words to do that, but what might that look like? And being sensitive to what people are feeling, if they're feeling shy or, uncomfortable, and how you can still be inclusive to make friends. So that was another story that I had.
Kevin Henkes is another good author also for the beginning. Lily's Plastic Purse and Owen, all getting along with Chrysanthemum, getting along with others and being individual, and he's always a favorite.
Yeah, he's great.
Oh, and Sharon, what you just said about that book, that was kind of one of the things I didn't talk about in Foundations, was one of the ways that we would get started with wordless books. And wordless books are so good to use with the kids when they first come in and just develop that oral language. And that is one of the ways we tell them, there's 3 ways to read, and one of the ways to read is to read the pictures. So we like to start with a lot of, I can't think of one off the top of my head, I'm sorry. That's why I'm just being general with wordless, but there are so many good wordless books that you can start with, to learn about story and develop that oral language, and then, then you guys can write an interactive story or shared story, what you think the words might be.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right, so we are just about out of time. We don't have any more questions from our viewers. So just as we finish up here, are there any last words or last ideas or advice or anything that you would like to say to people when they're thinking about setting up their classroom for Reader's Workshop?
I think it's just important that the main goal is to get the children to love reading. I know there are so many kids, once they get to a certain age, they really don't like reading anymore, and I feel a huge responsibility as a kindergarten teacher to get them to love it, to show how much fun it is. Let's talk about it. Let's share what we like, and just be excited about it, because once they get excited about reading, everything's going to come after that. It's going to come really nicely for them to grow as a reader.
Melissa?
Yeah, I think just being really mindful of your view of it and making sure that you're showing your excitement and your love of reading for them to see, and making sure that you have a wide variety of books for all of the students, and paying attention to what they're interested in and what they like to continue their interest in reading.
Awesome. And Molly, what about you?
I was just talking to my mentor yesterday, and I was telling her that I'm starting to get a little nervous for the school year, and she has been teaching for a couple years now, and she says, you know what, I still get that too. And one thing that I always think of or remind myself of is when you have that moment when you're in the classroom and all those eyes are looking at you, you can always read a book, and it seems to calm everyone, including myself, down. So that I just keep Stuart in the back of my mind, like, oh, maybe one more read aloud for today will do us all a little good. So there we go. We can always read a book.
That's great. Amy, what about you?
I guess because these guys have said so many wonderful things, I'll just go back to, that as much as you can do to communicate that piece with parents. whether it's through, you're lucky enough to have that face-to-face communication, whether it's always through written or communication, whether it's, you know, paper or email or whatnot, or you're a tech-savvy person like Sharon, and you can have that kind of communication with your parents. But we've had some forums the last few years with parents, and that has always been the biggest thing. We want more communication of what's going on in the classroom, how we can support it, and how we can be involved, but at home, because we can't be there. We can't be in your classrooms a lot of the time. So what can we do as an extension of that great readers workshop that you've done at school? What can we do at home to keep that engagement, that motivation, that excitement, and that love going?
I would have to agree. You guys were great. Those are all wonderful, wonderful things to think about. And I also think about just to have fun. Like, be happy when you're reading books. And use that expression and let that passion come through, whatever it is that, you know, you're studying or whatever it is that you're focusing on. Because I think that kids really pick up that sense right away, and then they get excited too. They do. They get excited too. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to our viewers, and thank you, Amy, thank you, Bonnie, Melissa, and Molly for joining us. It was great. It was really wonderful. You guys were awesome. All right. Good luck, everyone. Have a great school year.
You too, Sharon.